Most of our people arrived here in Western North Carolina area in the late 1970s. We were in a new place, new customs, with new food, but they were not the food that we were used to serving our families. There was nothing wrong with the food, and it's just something that is a bit strange and different at first. There was not Asian Food Mart or even the idea of Asian food in the area. I can remember going to giant supermarkets with just a small building at the time and seeing all the different things in the packages. I was amazed and confused at the same time. Our families uh, did what they could and bought food items that are somewhat familiar in the grocery stores and brought them to home to prepare for us. Of course, in this country, there's a lot of meat, but in our former world, meat was a luxury. We thought it was amazing to have access to such meat and fish in the store readily available to us. With every up there is and was a down, the vegetables were strange and we had a hard time understanding the new items and we did not know exactly what to do with them. Um, the grains were processed, the flours were in bags. We found rice, but it was not to the taste that we were used to. And there was our first introduction to a new world of our new home country that, uh, as you all have heard tonight, it was different. Nothing wrong with it, but it was different. It was something that we were not used to. The transition started in our culture was very slow. We eventually learned to manage and learn to eat the food that was around us. We started to being able to survive on the items that we found in the grocery stores, but yet there was a lot of things missing. And what that was missing in our families was the original taste, as we heard tonight, of our homeland, and the original taste of the cuisines that we all grew up in. So there was that distant memory in many people's families' thoughts, but what can we do? There's no grocery stores, there's no means of getting that here. So there was time when as a kid, I learned to eat with my friends and families that are in the community. They served things that were very strange to me, but I learned to eat it anyway. Have you ever seen, I've seen this and I've done it. Have you ever seen spaghetti put into two slices of white bread and eaten as a sandwich? Here I am. I'm one of those guys that did that. But I didn't know any better. I learned to eat it like that. I learned to eat hot dog, hamburger. I grew up in this country and that was my staple, and I didn't understand any different. But in our culture, there was a lot of things that were different that we were not familiar with, but we learned to make do with what we had. So, as we settled into the new country and new world, our people were able to start purchasing land and be able to produce small quantities of the food. As time passed, we learned that others were able to grow the fruits and vegetables that we all enjoyed and love in the home country. A lot of it was our mustard greens and things like that. And in the Hmong community, what happens is if one person learned that somebody gained access to certain seed, we all call them and we ask for seed. So that seed gets shared and even across the country from here to California and all other places. And that is a part of the Hmong culture. So even with all the fruits and vegetables that are now already available and we're starting to process, to grow and to feed our families, there was one item that was missing. So instead of reading this on what that item that was missing, I hope that I can express it in a way that you guys can also feel what we were feeling. So it started from a time when this New World give us everything that we need to survive, all the food that we want, all the things that we desire. But there's one crucial part of our culture that was missing, and it's something that is not easily replicated. What was missing? That missing part was our characteristic golden grain that we have. And that grain goes back hundreds and hundreds of centuries back into the time where we were a people that live in the mountains of China, Laos, Vietnam. A grain that we found by our elders, by our ancestors. And it was so remarkable that when they found it, they loved it so much that it was created such wonderful desires that were built in within the culture, that this grain was embedded into the Hmong community for those many centuries. Now this grain, I'll give the overview of it. It's a rice, but a rice that is not like any other rice. This rice, when our elders found it, it was said that it was so remarkable, has such wonderful flavor and taste. The texture was beautiful, and it was like something that everybody desired so much, but at the time it's such a rare commodity. And it's said that in those days, if you are invited to go and eat this rice, you will have to go and be clean, well dressed, and also be at of your best manners in order to be invited to be seated at the table to eat this rice. So what happens is when this rice become part of our culture for millennia, we develop this relationship with it that we deeply respected. That process still remains very deep in our culture today, that this rice, we gave it a simple but wonderful name over time, and the translation from our language, which is sakun, to English is suits. And it still carries that name because in our people, you have to have certain things that attach you in order that you can still consider yourself as part of a unique culture. What survives in our culture is what we remember, what we pass to the children, and in our food. So sakun, still, it was a part of us that was missing in the diet of the people in the Hmong culture in the United States. So how this grain got into the United States is a very much of a wonderful thing that happened, be it smuggled, okay? I have to admit it. So a lady in the Fresno area went back to Laos to visit family, and when she got there, it was also harvest time. And when it was during the harvest time, it was that time that she remembered the taste and smell and the wonderful things that was being brought to her, because over the decades that she lived in the United States, that was missing completely. And when she met with the family that was in the old village that she went back to, she realized this is something that I cannot live without. She brought in another culture item that is in the Hmong community. It's called pandao, a cloth that tells of flowery stories that traces our roots. So she made baggies, and only a few ounces, or only a few seed, were in these little baggies. And in these baggies found itself in the bottom of big suitcases. And and these big suitcases came into California, and everything was safe, everything was good. She planted it, but lo and behold, the rice didn't do well in California. What happened is it grew only a few feet tall. It made very small seeds. It didn't do well. It didn't prosper and grow. The families were really counting on this seed, the Hmong rice, to be able to come from California and go all over the United States to give us a little bit of our own culture, experience in our food, but it didn't work. Everybody in California gave up on it until her sister that happened to live in Lenore, North Carolina. They talked over the phone back in the late 80s or so, and the discussion was what happened to the rice. So she, the sister in California, looked long and hard because a lot of it was destroyed, lost, or given up on. Found about maybe an ounce and a half of seed. And she shipped it to her sister in Lenore. And in Lenore, the sister planted a little small patty in the back, not even a patty, but a little flower bed in her backyard. Lo and behold, the rice prospered. It grew taller than she did. It made about 12 to 16-inch heads on it. It's like a tassel that it's just overflowing. And she was so surprised and happy with it. But, a good thing spreads like wildfire, too. So when the Hmong community learned about it, everybody sought after the seed. The second year that rice arrived in North Carolina, from an ounce, it became several 5-gallon buckets. Out of the several 5-gallon buckets, to the point where I can say today, where my family also was able to gain a little bit of that seed that comes from it, that we can plant acres and acres of this rice. But it was always kept in the Hmong community because we always felt that the regular, larger community would not know it, would not like it, would not, have a desire for it. So in the last 40 plus years, we kept it in the Hmong community. Can you believe that rice sakun has been grown in North Carolina in the foothills, Burt County, McDowell County for 40 plus years? So from that situation, my wife and I, back in 2008, decided that we were going to be the rebels. And it was her fault. So you can blame it all on my wife because she is the owner of the company. I'm just her worker. So happy to do that. Anyway, in 2008, we come into the Asheville area with great hopes with her first. We came into the Asheville area and start introducing our products, our fruits and vegetables, and our rice, a mysterious, unknown quantity. Because what's the first thing when somebody introduces you to rice? The majority of the people already think rice, oh yeah, it's a starch, oh yeah, it's tasteless, oh yeah, it's something that we don't really eat much of. The most I ever heard was, yeah, once in a while we use it for stuffing, we make into rice pudding, and yes, Rice Krispies, that's the thing that everybody knows about rice. So it is true. So eventually what happened is she twisted my arm to come to market with her, and I did. I was happy to. And I stood in front of the stall of our market tents. And little did she know, I snuck little half-pound bags of rice, our wonderful sakun, to anybody that would smile at me and walk up and talk to me. So what I did there was I said, go home, cook this, see if you like it, come back next week and talk to me. And a remarkable thing happened. Everybody that received that little small bit of half-pound rice went home. They came back, whether it's a week later, whether it's a month later, whether it's 2 months later. They were jumping in up and down saying, where'd you get that? How did you acquire that? Where did you get this from? Or, do you have this in somewhere that I can get? So we introduced them to our rice, and everybody fell in love with it as much as we did. The great thing about having something wonderful is the word of mouth spread faster in the South here. We call it grease lightning, and it's true. It did. And a fun thing that happened was we used to grow only 6 acres of our wonderful rice, and it will take us from September until about May to sell out. After this happened, and I'm going to give a shout out to a wonderful friend of ours, Miss Sherry Castle, with a little bit of publicity with PBS and all. What happened was we went to planting 16 acres after that instead of 6 acres. And we went from selling at the end of May to sell out to harvesting in September and sold out in October. So it's something that is wonderful. But if it wasn't for folks like the Utopian Seed Project with Chris, all our wonderful chefs and friends, several of them are here tonight, and the many, many wonderful shoppers that come to our stall and willingly stand there in line, sometimes up to 30 minutes just to be able to get one bag. Without these folks, I can honestly say we wouldn't be here where we're at today as well. So a great, wonderful thank you to everyone. And as we said in our statement, this is just the beginning. Guess what? We got 3 other varieties that are now they are now being developed. So look for us, and we look for all the friends that we can get. Thank you.